On January 25, 1993, this company announced it was killing its catalog. Not a catalog. The catalog. 1,500 pages. 105 years in print. The book that sold Americans their clothes, their tools, their appliances. And for 30 years, entire houses, shipped by railcar in numbered pieces. Same announcement. 50,000 jobs eliminated. Over 100 stores closed. 19 months later, a man in Seattle registered a domain name and started selling books out of a garage. Here's what every version of this story gets wrong. This company did not miss the internet. It had been selling things through a screen since 1984, a full decade before the web browser existed. They saw it. They built it. Then they took it apart with their own hands. This is case number 3. To understand what was destroyed, you have to understand what it was. Sears did not start as a store. It started as a book. For 32 years, there were no stores at all. Just a catalog, a warehouse, and the postal service. You picked an item off a page, mailed an order, and it arrived at your door. That is Amazon's business model at national scale in 1893. And the machine underneath it was extraordinary. A distribution network, purpose-built for one job, getting a single item to a single household, anywhere in America, including places with no shops and no roads worth the name. Sears built the infrastructure of American consumption before America had highways. By the 1970s, it was the largest retailer on earth, nearly 3,500 stores at its peak. In 1972, the company was worth about $18 billion. Call it $135 billion today. And inside that machine sat something nobody had a word for yet. Decades of names, addresses, and purchase histories for tens of millions of households. The most valuable data set in retail before anyone said the word data. Like Kodak and Nokia before it, Sears was the market. Now watch them give it away. Twice. Refusal 1. 1984. Sears co-founds a joint venture with IBM and CBS, an online service where subscribers read news, send messages, and shop from a screen at home. 1984. The World Wide Web does not exist. Jeff Bezos is a college student. This is 11 years before Amazon. They call it Prodigy. And it works. By 1993, it's the largest online service in America. It also loses money. Enormous money. Startup costs alone ran to roughly $450 million, and the venture bled well over $1 billion. In 1996, Sears sells its stake for a fraction of what it put in. A decade-long head start on e-commerce. Sold. Refusal 2. 1993. The catalog is genuinely dying. $3.3 billion in sales, $175 million in losses, roughly 20 consecutive unprofitable years. Killing it is defensible. But look at how they killed it. They didn't just stop printing. They dismantled the fulfillment infrastructure the catalog ran on and let the customer lists go stale. 1 year later, Amazon is founded. 4 years after that, Sears launches an e-commerce site and has to rebuild from scratch the exact capabilities it had just demolished. I want to stop on that word, dismantled, because most coverage says it and moves on. It's the whole case. Here's the thing nobody outside logistics tends to know. Distribution network is not one thing. It's two completely different physical systems that share a name. System 1. Store replenishment. You move pallets, full truckloads, from a few large warehouses on fixed schedules to a fixed set of destinations that never move. Efficiency comes from volume and predictability. System 2. Direct-to-household fulfillment. You move one blender to one address that has never been shipped to before and may never be again. The destination list is every house in the country. Efficiency comes from picking accuracy, packing density, and the last mile. These two systems want opposite things: different building layouts, different pick paths, different labor models, even different placement on the map. Replenishment centers cluster near stores. Fulfillment centers cluster near population. A warehouse optimized for one is actively bad at the other. Sears spent a century building System 2, the hard one, the one Amazon would later spend 20 years and tens of billions recreating. In 1993, Sears disposed of it to serve System 1. Stores. That looked like a cost cut. It was an amputation. Because here's what doesn't appear on a balance sheet. It isn't reversible. You cannot re-enter direct-to-household fulfillment with a software project. Buildings have to be sited and built. Pick systems designed and debugged. Carrier relationships negotiated from zero. And institutional knowledge, the people who know why the third aisle is laid out that way, walks out with the layoffs and does not come back. Sears had a 100-year head start and handed it over voluntarily, not to a competitor, to the wrecking crew. Kodak's factory was a trap it couldn't escape. Nokia's fear was a wall it couldn't speak through. Sears is the third failure mode, and the bleakest. The company that had the winning asset understood it well enough to have built it and destroyed it anyway, because in the quarter it was measured, the asset looked like a cost. What follows is 25 years of a company trying to buy back what it threw away. Sears launches online in 1997, early. It's selling tools on the internet while Amazon is still mostly a bookstore. None of it matters, because a website is not a fulfillment network. Amazon spent those years building warehouses. Sears spent them running stores. In 2005, a hedge fund manager takes control and merges Sears with Kmart. Two struggling retailers bolted together and run as a financial position rather than a shop. Capital that could have gone into logistics goes into buybacks and asset sales. The real estate is sold. The store base shrinks. By 2018, the company that had been the largest retailer on earth files for bankruptcy protection. Nearly 3,500 stores at its peak. Today, you can count them on your fingers. Amazon, founded the year after Sears killed the catalog. So here's what's in this file, and it completes a pattern. Kodak invented digital photography and couldn't escape its factory. Nokia built the touchscreen future and couldn't say so out loud. Sears was Amazon for a century and dismantled the machine that made it Amazon. 3 companies, 3 failure modes. Not one of them was blind. That's the finding across all 3 cases, and it should bother you. Foresight was never the scarce resource. Every one of these companies saw the future, often built it first. What killed them was structural, an asset base that couldn't bend, a culture that couldn't speak, a balance sheet that couldn't tell the difference between a cost and a moat. So the useful question isn't whether your company sees what's coming. It probably does. The useful question is, what are you currently calling a cost? That is actually the only thing keeping you alive. Sears could answer that question in 1993. It just didn't like the answer. Case number 3 is closed. Case number 4, a company that invented the personal computer, the mouse, and the graphical screen you're reading this on, and let all 3 walk out the door. It's on the channel Friday.